Hi, and welcome to the 8th section of the Design Plus Code React for Designers course. My name is Mank, and today we're going to learn about style components. This is going to take your CSS to the next level. It's going to allow you to have a single file for all your styling and your component, but also it's going to allow you to use powerful tools that is very similar to Sass. And on top of that, you're going to be able to pass props to your CSS, which is super useful. We're going to learn how to create this component right here with a double wave, and we're going to learn how to pass the props to our CSS. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to create a new component file called section. So right click on components, new file, section.js. And here we're going to start importing React from React. We're going to create a stateless component, so constant section is equal to props arrow parenthesis div close div, and then we're going to export that to default. So export default section. We're also going to install a new library called style components. So in order to do that, we're going to enable the integrated terminal, so control tilde, and you're going to see it right here. We're going to type npm install -- save style components and enter. So this might take a few minutes, and once it's done, you can basically close this and then go back here to import the style components. So import style from style components. Before we go any further, we should go to Figma and try to plan how we're going to write the code for this. So first of all, we're going to need the entire container for this. And then we're going to divide that into two parts, the top portion and the bottom portion. And inside the bottom portion, we're going to have another grid, which is divided by two, left and right. But if the layout or the device is too small, then we're going to stack them on top of each other. So this at the top, and this would go right underneath it. So let's start writing the code for that. Now, the way that we write style components is that we have to assume that every class name is going to be a component. So instead of writing div class name is equal to section group, for example, we can just take this name and put that as the name of our tag. Then close the tag and add some content. And for every single element, such as the section logo, we're going to have a component for that, as well as the group, the section title group. And inside the title group, we're going to have the section title, as well as the section text. Okay, so this is the structure, and we can start putting some data inside it using the props. The first thing is we're going to have the image. So image is equal to curly brackets props.image, close the curly brackets. And for the logo as well, we're going to have src props.logo. Inside the title, we're going to have props.title. Inside the text, props.text. Now, typically, you would have to create a new CSS file for the section component. But in this case, because we're using style components, we can just apply the styles right here. So const, the name, section group, for example, is equal to style, which is the name that we have imported here. And we're going to give it the different kind of tag. So in this case, it's going to be a div, and we're going to use backticks to set the content. Now inside this, we can set any CSS code. So for example, background black, height 720 pixel and save. But of course, nothing is going to appear here because we haven't imported the section component. So we're going to go to our index.js inside pages. We're going to set the section right here underneath the cards. So if I select this, you can see that it's the div that's cards. So we're going to go right after that. We're going to type section. And here, select the auto import one, and if you do that, it's going to import the section component automatically. So let's close this tag and make sure that it's really importing the section. On top of that, we should also pass some props. So we're going to create a new line and start typing image is equal to curly brackets, require, parenthesis, single quotes, and then the path to the image, wallpaper2.jpg. And then just add a logo, the title, and the text. Feel free to use any logo you want or any text that you want. It's a pretty long text, so I'm gonna fast forward this. Now, if you save this, it's gonna give you an error because it says that the section logo doesn't exist anywhere as a component. So we're gonna go back to the section.js and we're gonna make sure that these component names actually exist somewhere. So first of all, constant section logo is equal to style, and it's gonna be an image. Constant section title group is equals to style div. Constant section title is equal to style h3, and then finally the text. Constant section text is equal to style p. So I'm basically giving a different tag type for each of these components. This one is going to be a div, this one is going to be an image, this is going to be a div, this is going to be a h3, and this one a p. Now if you reload, it should look something like this. So the data is passed, but we just need to style it. So when you use a CSS, you can't really pass data to the CSS, but with style components you can. Now I just need to pass this image is equal to props image, which comes from the prop, but now I can pass this image also to the CSS. And here's how you would do it. First of all, you might want to have URL. Inside the parentheses, I'm gonna have $, curly brackets, props, arrow, and then props.image. Then save. And voila, I just passed from this image here to the CSS. Okay, so at this point, I'm just gonna customize the styling. So I'm gonna set the background size to cover. And then I'm gonna set the display to grid. I'm gonna try to divide this space into two, and I want this to align to the bottom and this to align to the top. So what I'm gonna do is grid template rows 300, so that's the space for the logo, and then auto, meaning that it's gonna take the remaining space. I'm gonna set a bit of a gap to 20. Now, because I don't necessarily want to align everything using justify items or align items, I'm just gonna go to each one of them. So for example, this one, which is the logo, it's gonna be align self to the end. So it's gonna go to the bottom of the 300. And also for the image, I want that to be 120 pixel. I also want to have a margin of 0 auto so that it's centered. Now let's talk about the content here. So we have the title and we have the text. The first thing we want to fix first is to make them white so that we can see them. And then I'm going to use columns instead of rows for these. So this itself is going to be a grid as well. So grid template columns. I want the left portion to be 300, so 300 pixel auto. And let's make the title bigger. So font size, it's gonna be 60 pixel. Let's get rid of this margin, so margin 0. And then we're also going to fix the line height. So line to 1.2. Okay, so it's starting to look pretty good. But what we're noticing is that we're having trouble styling everything inside the JavaScript. There's a plugin, there's an extension actually, that's called Babel. And you want to have the first one, so Babel JavaScript, install it, and then reload. So when you install this, you can see that the code is much more readable, but also the auto-completion is there. Now we can start making this a little bit more adaptive. So for example, I'm gonna set the margin to 0 and 40. And then I'm gonna set the grid gap to 20 pixel. I'm also going to make sure that when the device is small, this is gonna have its own line and this is gonna go underneath. So in order to do that, I'm gonna do media max width 720 pixels curly brackets. And what you're noticing here is that I can use nesting. I can just put the media queries inside of the title group. So now I can do grid template columns 1FR. So now when you resize it, it goes to 2 lines. But there's a bit of spacing. So what we're gonna do is do grid template rows auto 100%. And now this fixed the issue. Okay, now we're ready to add the waves. So the top one and the bottom one. The first thing we're gonna do is to create a component. So new file, call it wave.js. We're gonna create it from scratch. So import react from react, const wave is equal to nothing, and then arrow parenthesis export default wave. Inside this, we're gonna put the SVG code. We're gonna go to index, get our super long SVG code here, cut it, go back to our wave and put this code right here. Let's just fix the indentation a little bit and then save. Now we go back to the index and we can call the wave. Clicking auto import, boom, close the tag, and now we have imported the wave and we have used the wave right here. If we save, you can see that the wave is still there. It's just that now it's a component. And because it's a component, I can basically go to section and use that wave here as well. So let's bring the wave to our section. So wave, auto import, and close. If you save, you're gonna see the wave is here. We just need to start aligning it correctly. In order to do that, we need a wrapper for positioning. So wave bottom, then close wave bottom. Of course, also include the wave bottom style component. We're going to make it position absolute. Let's set the width to 100% and the bottom to 0. But when you do that, it doesn't appear anywhere. That's because it has to be against the position relative of the entire thing, which is a section group. And now it appears at the bottom. We just need to get rid of this gap by doing bottom -6 instead. Now let's take care of the second wave. So wave top close wave top and put wave inside it. Don't forget to create the wave top style component. So style div, and then put that position absolute with 100%, top to -6, and now it looks like this. But the wave needs to flip so that it's symmetrical, almost. So what we're gonna do is do a transform using rotate at 180 degree. And then boom, you have exactly what I have on the final site. We're really getting there. We just need to make it a little bit more adaptive, because as you can see, if I make it like this, the wave is kind of hiding the text a little bit. So we're gonna make the text smaller, and we're also gonna increase the height of the component here. So let's do that. First of all, for the section group, I'm gonna set the media so that max width is 640. I'm going to have a height of 820 pixel. So now it's bigger, and that fixes my issue. The second thing I'm gonna fix is also the title to be smaller. So media max width 720 pixel. I'm gonna set it to a font size of, let's say, 40 pixel. And again, it's entirely up to you to come up with your own design, your own conditions. But this is what I have so far, and it's trying to take care of all of these cases. And when you sweat the details, of course, it's gonna take a lot longer. But at least this is showing you enough technique to take you to where you want to be. So that's it for this section. We've learned a lot of stuff today. We learned about style components, how to install a new library, and how to set up our style components so that we don't need to create a CSS file. And on top of that, we've managed to pass some props to our styles, which is really cool. And then we learn about, creating the wave and using transform to make it look good, as well as some key CSS grid technique. So I hope to see you on the next section. We're gonna learn a lot about static data using JSON, and I think that's gonna be really exciting. I'll see you next time.